Did you know that you can materialize a thought into physical form? Yes, you can. And I'm going to show you how to do that in this video. In my last video, I mentioned something called the stick man. Before we get into that, I want to touch on how it is you materialize a thought into physical form. Of course, the first thing you're going to want to do is figure out what it is you want. Otherwise, what you materialize, it's going to be a mess. So I put a link in the description to a study guide that will help you figure out what you really want. So let's get started. There's only two things you need to know to live your dream. You got to know where you are, where you're going, and then start moving in that direction. Seems pretty easy. It's so simple and obvious. But then, why are so many people stuck? There's people listening to this recording who are stuck. Why? I mean, it's so obvious and simple to know where you are and where you're going, and that in order to do that, you got to get moving. But we're stuck. You could say, well, they don't have a goal. But there are people who are clearer about what they want than others, but everyone can probably tell you something that they want. So the goal must not be the problem. You want to know what the problem is? I think the problem lies down here. Most people don't know where they are. See if you can relate to this. When I was a kid, my mom was scolding me for something I did. And she said, Paul, why'd you do that? And I'd say, I don't know. And then she said, you know better. And I said, yeah. So then why'd you do it? I don't know. Later in school, my teacher would tell me, Paul, you know the work. Yeah. Then why'd you fail the test? I don't know. Later, when I was in the Air Force, my first sergeant said, Airman, you're supposed to be here at 0700 and it's almost noon. You set your alarm clock, right? Yes, sir. Then why are you so late? I don't know. Well, you know better. Yes, sir. So why were you late? I don't know. So think about this. We're doing things we don't want to do. That's giving us results we don't want to get. And we don't know why we're doing it. You already know how to do a lot better than you're doing. I already know what to do a lot better than I'm doing. Our problem is not that we don't know, we do know. Our problem is the paradigm. Now I want you to ask yourself a question. If I were to ask you to explain to me what a paradigm is, how well would you do? Most people wouldn't do very well. Now, a paradigm is what's in control of our life to a very large degree. It's the paradigm that had me doing things I didn't want to do, even though I knew better. My mom didn't know what was wrong. My teachers didn't know what was wrong. My first sergeant didn't know why. They didn't know there's a paradigm in control of me. And I didn't know there's a paradigm in control of me. So I got in trouble for doing something I knew better, but I did it anyway. Every adult out there already knows how to do better than they're already doing. It isn't that we don't know how. We do know how. It's that we're not doing what we know to do. That's the problem that keeps people stuck. The paradigm is a huge problem for almost everyone. It's true for me, for the person sitting next to you, for the leaders of any business, for everyone. Let's take a look at what a paradigm is. Now, a paradigm is a mental program that has almost exclusive control over our habitual behavior. It's a mental program that has almost exclusive control over our habitual behavior. And almost all of our behavior is habitual. Oh no, don't just take my word for this and pretend that this is just any old presentation. Stop and think, if you're living with someone, what do they do when they get up in the morning? There's a pattern, a routine that they follow, right? You can almost write a book on it. And if you're living with someone, you don't mess with their routine in the morning. But it's a routine. It's exact almost. It's the same way with our life. We can almost write a book on what we do. So which areas of your life do you think the paradigm is in control of? It would be very wise advice to pay very close attention here. This is very important. Paradigms control your perception. Now, perception is a mental faculty. Animals do not have perception. Humans do. Perception is one of the higher faculties that we've got. When Bob had a particular challenge that he was dealing with, he had an exercise that he said would help him shift his perception. It would change the way he would look at something. I tried it and it works. What he'd do is he would write the problem down in as much detail as possible and so clear that if he were to give it to someone else, they would see exactly what he saw. So I get the picture in my mind and I paint it with words. And if you will try this, you'll find it works like magic. Now take the problem that you wrote on the piece of paper and put it in the center of a desk or table, and then take a look at it and ask yourself, is that problem in me or is it on the paper? He would work on getting it out of him and getting it on the paper so it's not in control of him. Then he'd take a look at the paper on the table and read it until he thoroughly understood it. Then he'd physically get up and move to another place around the table and look at it again. But this time he'd say, how would Earl Nightingale look at that? Then he'd move to a different angle and say, how would Napoleon Hill look at that? He'd move around the table like that and consider how others he respected would look at it. Pretty soon the problem on the table wasn't a problem at all. Perception is a mental faculty, and yet it's being controlled by your paradigm. That controls how you look at things. When I talk to people about developing their superpowers, I have to remember they have a paradigm and I have a paradigm too. Most people don't understand what I mean by superpowers. These aren't powers to get. These are powers you already have. I'm just helping you bring them to the surface. Funny thing about it, some people are like, I don't want to develop my superpowers. What kind of bullshit is this? And I asked them to explain to me, what are their 6 higher mental faculties and how do they work? You see, I'm interested in helping people develop these powers, not argue about whether they exist or not. Now, your paradigm controls your use of time. We all get the same amount of time and nobody gets more than anyone else. The paradigm controls everything. The paradigm controls your creativity. Some say only a few people are creative, but the fact is we're all creative. If you believe we're created in the image of God, then you know we are truly creative beings. You are truly a creative being. You can take these higher faculties that all the other forms of life on the planet don't have, and you can create something. The presentation, this presentation, is a creation. It's the manifestation I had of an image in my mind that I wanted to share with you. Your paradigm controls your effectiveness. It controls what you do and how you do it. And your effectiveness dictates your productivity. How productive are you? I have one friend who is so productive, it's kind of fun to watch. He's always working on something and he is so focused on each task. Now your paradigm, it controls your logic. You'll have people say, you've got to be realistic. I wonder what the neighbors thought of the Wright brothers, a couple of bicycle mechanics over in Dayton, Ohio. They must have been considered out of their minds. Think how often does logic stop you? If you can think it, you can do it. And of course, your paradigm controls your ability to earn money. One of the first things I'll ask someone on a sales call is, what is the most you've ever earned in 1 year? It's not that I don't care what the answer is, but I want to know the answer because that will tell me what their paradigm has to say about them earning money. If I'm sitting down with someone and the most they've ever earned is about 45K a year, and I start talking to them about earning $1 million, I'm going to lose them right away. Instead, I tend to talk to them about a car or a trip or something they can relate to, because most people don't really understand money. Once we get clear about the want, we can figure out how much money is needed and go from there. All the money in the world is available to us. All we have to do is earn it. I focus on what people want, not the amount of money they need to earn to get it. Once they want something enough, the money will come. Now, Napoleon Hill, he studied 500 of the world's most successful people, and he pointed out that if you believe that hard work and honesty alone will bring riches, perish the thought, it's not true. Riches, when they come in large quantities, are never the result of hard work. Riches come, if they come at all, in response to definite demand based upon the application of definite principles and not by chance or luck. It's all by law. There is no limit to what you can earn. Paradigms keep you boxed in all those areas I just mentioned. It's like there's a box around them. And every time we go to change, we hit the wall and it doesn't happen. When you make up your mind that you're going to change the paradigm, the wall comes down. That doesn't mean it's going to change right away. But once you make a decision, I'm changing this, that wall comes down. Someone listening to this presentation, hopefully everybody, is going to make a decision based on I'm changing it. This presentation is going to be the turning point. You've spent time listening and that time's valuable. I'm definitely not trying to waste your time here. I'm trying to show you how you can go further than you've ever dreamed in your life. Make a decision that you're going to change, and the changes can be huge. And another thing, when you change a paradigm, it's permanent. You will never go back. Awareness is something you cannot lose. I've met people who have degrees coming off the end of their business cards, and they have plenty of knowledge, but not too much awareness. A person isn't earning $100,000 a year because they want $100,000 a year. They're earning $100,000 a year because they are not aware of how to earn $100,000 a month. When you help someone build their awareness, it's something they're not going to lose. For instance, a baby doesn't know the difference between a woman and a man. They have to learn that. And when the baby develops that awareness, they never lose it. When you become aware of how your paradigm is controlling you and how you can change it, there is no end to where you can go or what you can do. That's the difference between the intellect and awareness. Let's suppose you only changed one thing that I just told you that your paradigm controls. Let's say you only change your perception of yourself in whatever circumstances you currently find yourself in right now, and that you realize that there is nothing that's in the way but your awareness of how to do it. And you decided to make that decision right now to develop that awareness, and nothing's going to stop you. Man, I wish I had known this about 20 years ago. I had a beautiful house about 50 miles west of here. Had a little pool situated on the top of the hill, beautiful green open space behind me. It was really beautiful. I'd been working at Wells Fargo Bank and making a pretty good income, but when I'd get in that elevator in the morning to go up to the 6th floor to my little cubicle, I just couldn't do it anymore. So I made an appointment with Human Resources and I said, today is my birthday. I'm 40 and I think I want to quit. They asked me why I wanted to do that. And I said, I just want to be a gardener. That's really what I said. So looking back, I can see that letting my paradigm run the show had consequences on my life. But I really have no regrets. Man, but I was lost. Somehow I made it through, although I lost that house in the process. And now I am a gardener, but instead of seeds in the ground, I grow ideas in the mind and watch them materialize into form. It's crazy fun. When you change your perception, your friends are probably going to think you're crazy. They really mean well. They're not trying to hurt you, but don't listen to them. Don't listen to what other people have to say about how you want to perceive something. When you start showing results, they won't think you're so crazy after all. Trust me. Did you know that you can create your own economy, your own future? Well, you can. Back in the 1930s, during the Great Depression, there were still those making millions of dollars. In the very worst economies, there are people doing very well. And in the best economies, there are people who can't figure out how to get out of debt. It's inside. It's in your attitude. It's in your way of thinking. It's your perception of what your life is right now. Build that idea big in your mind and then go ahead and execute it. It's so basic and simple that we miss it. To be able to shape your future, you have to be willing and able to change your paradigm. And if you're not willing to change the paradigm, forget it. You're not going to go very far. You're going to stay where that paradigm keeps you. So when I was just getting started with Bob's material, he mentioned an experience he had with his first mentor who told him, Bob, take that R and let it represent results. Then he said, let that HHW stand for happiness, health, and wealth. He asked Bob if he thought he was a happy guy. And Bob said, he sure did. He asked Bob if he ever saw him sick. Bob said, he always seemed healthy, no question about that. He asked Bob if he ever saw him without money. And Bob said, no, I always saw him with a few bucks. He told Bob that he thought Bob was one of the most miserable people he ever met. He was never happy, always sick, and always broke. He asked Bob to read a book called Think and Grow Rich. And he told him the history of the book. He told Bob that if he would study this book and do exactly as he told him to do, that he could have anything he wanted. He also said, Bob, your way isn't working. Why don't you try mine? And for some reason, Bob said yes, and the rest is history. Now I've spent the last 2 years studying and applying this information in my own life. And my recommendation, try Bob's way. Did you know that most successful people couldn't even tell you why they are? They're what's known as unconscious competence. They're very good, but they can't really articulate why they are. When I found out why, all I wanted to do is share this information with anyone who would listen. Build a big goal. Build a goal that inspires you every night when you go to bed and fills your mind when you wake up in the morning. And know this, if you can think it, what I'm teaching in this video will show you how to get it. Your spiritual DNA is perfect. It requires no modification or improvement. That means we have perfection inside of us. It's already there. And that perfection seeks expression with and through you. That's what causes you to want. So my mom taught me that I should be satisfied with what I've got. But you know, that was part of her paradigm. You should never be satisfied with what you got. Grateful, happy, yes, but never be satisfied. Because dissatisfaction is a creative state. Dissatisfaction is going to get you to reach higher, go further, and run faster. Dissatisfaction is a creative state. It's the spiritual essence in us seeking expression through us. That's why you want. You want the Lamborghini. You want the trip to Hawaii. Whatever you want. Everything you own when you die belongs to someone else. You never own anything. You're just the custodian. You should have it. You should enjoy it, but you never own it. But what you are forever. And that's why you want to develop a greater awareness. You want to become aware of this perfection within us. Spirit is all-knowing. All the knowledge that ever was or will ever be is here right now. The way to fuel our homes using solar has always been here. We just weren't aware of it. It is all powerful. People ask me sometimes, Paul, where do you get all your energy? And you don't get energy, you release energy. Desire is the triggering mechanism. I'm 65 years old, and sometimes I feel like I have more energy than someone 35 years old. Age has nothing to do with it. It's what you're thinking. Desire is how you release the energy. That's the triggering mechanism. We're connected to everything, and everything's connected to us. And there's only one power, and that's the real you. Are you truly what or who you pretend to be? Let's look at the mind and paradigms, but let's make it a little bit more personal. Let's look at your mind and your paradigm. There was a chiropractor in San Antonio, Texas, named Thurman Fleet. He was very involved in the healing arts and the power of the mind. You should look him up. His ideas are fascinating. Anyway, back in 1934, he said the mind is an activity, not a thing. And no one has ever seen the mind. And in order to gain clarity and eliminate confusion, I will create an image we can work with. He said, everything works from the mind, from the heart to a lower potential. You don't raise morale, it filters down from the top. He said, the problem is nobody's ever seen the mind. So let's let this diagram represent the mind. We've got the conscious and the subconscious, and then you have the body. The body is the instrument of the mind. Now, Bob said this is the most valuable idea he had ever learned. I would tend to agree with him. You know, I've studied these laws for years, but up until I learned about this, I never knew how to consistently apply them. In other words, I already had a ton of knowledge on the subject, and I've gone through my entire life with all the puzzle pieces laid out for me on a big table. But I didn't have the lid for the box, so I had no idea how to put the puzzle together. So when I first learned about this diagram about 2 years ago, that's when, bam, everything started coming together, and I've reached an awareness which is completely unreal. The diagram, it's worth its weight in gold. So let's take a look at it. Your conscious mind is your thinking mind. It's also called the educated mind. That's where the intellect is resident. Now we have these sensory factors: see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. It's our intellect that separates us from our pets. I used to have a dog named Baron, and he could see, smell, hear, taste, and touch, but he could not think, although sometimes I wondered. The subconscious is your emotional mind. It operates entirely different than your conscious mind. There's a great book I've been reading lately called The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. It's probably the best book on the subconscious mind ever written, except it doesn't have an image of the mind in it. If you study this and then go study Murphy's book, you'll really get something out of it. Now, the conscious mind gives you the ability to choose. Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, a Jewish psychiatrist who spent his war years in the German concentration camp. And he said, while he was in that camp, regardless of the intellectual or physical abuse he was subjected to, no one could cause him to think something he didn't want to think. That was his choice. Our conscious mind gives us the ability to accept or reject. We can just say no. All the things you hear on the radio or read in the newspaper or see on TV, you can reject it. Don't spend any time thinking about it, because what was there today will be gone tomorrow. I know it's really interesting, all the things going on in the world. I've always loved getting involved in discussions about it, but slowly but surely I'm weaning myself off of it. I'm now of the opinion that if we want to have a better world, we have to develop these superpowers individually, one by one. So if you're still watching this video, do share it so others can learn about it. Your conscious mind also has the ability to accept or reject any idea. And when you get good at rejecting ideas and thoughts that are constantly served your way, you can originate your own ideas, whatever you want. Your subconscious mind doesn't have that ability. Your subconscious mind must accept whatever you give to it. It's like the earth. It doesn't care what you plant. It will simply accept it because it has no way to reject it. The subconscious mind cannot determine the difference between that which is real or that which is imagined. If you start imagining something bad, you will start feeling bad. If you imagine something good, you will start feeling good. Your subconscious mind just accepts what you give to it. It doesn't know what's real at all. So why not see yourself doing what you want to be doing, earning what you want to be earning? And don't worry about the people laughing, saying, who do you think you are, dreamer? I just told you who you are, and you know, if you quiet your mind and think about it, that I'm telling you the truth. So let's look again. Here you are today. Here's us today, and we're getting bombarded with all kinds of information. Because we have a reasoning factor in our conscious mind, we have the ability to think. We have the ability, since we think, to tell all those things on the radio, TV, newspapers to get out of town, get out of here. But we don't do that. We let it play. And not only do we let it play, we let it all go into our subconscious because we leave our mind wide open. And remember, I said the subconscious can't reject. And all that stuff is going right into our emotional mind. Why would we do that? Well, it's because we've been programmed to do it. That's part of what we call the paradigm. So how did that happen exactly? Well, I'll tell you exactly how it happened. This is us as an infant. Anyone who has had a baby, this is how the baby arrives. Its subconscious mind is wide open. Whatever's going on around the baby will go right into that baby's subconscious mind, and it keeps going in. Whatever those people are saying or doing is going right into that subconscious mind. That baby will grow up speaking the language of the people it's surrounded by. If you took a baby out of an English-speaking home, here and put them in a Chinese speaking home over in China, that baby will grow up fluent in Chinese and may not know anything about English. Here's an interesting statistic that I didn't believe when I first heard it. Almost all welfare recipients are 4th and 5th generation welfare recipients. That's why. It's the paradigm. If the parents don't go to school, the kids won't go to school. When I talk with people about the information I teach about, I never ask them if they want to learn about it, and generally ask them where they want to start. My Develop Your Superpowers Facebook group is a great place to start. Okay, so let's go back to the baby. So back to the baby. Over and over, the information is coming in and it's getting dumped into the subconscious mind. That's how the self-image is formed. And back in the 60s, there was an author named Robert Heinlein, and he wrote a book, Strangers in a Strange Land. And he said, in absence of clearly defined goals, we become strangely loyal to performing daily trivia until we ultimately become enslaved by it. Sounds about where we're at in the world right now, doesn't it? Everyone's staring at their phones, looking for more trivia to consume their time with. And we've got so much power. Now here we are, 30, 40 years later, and we dress a particular way, eat foods that our parents ate and their parents ate, and basically that all comes from our conditioning when we're growing up. It's just a paradigm. Let's look again. We've got a brand new baby, and everything that is happening in the baby's environment is going directly into the baby's subconscious mind. We become a product of our environment. And that is how the paradigm is formed. That's where the self-image is formed. Then they begin to develop senses, see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. They discover that that foot is their foot. It's a miracle to watch a baby develop awareness. That's us. And there's a bunch of stuff we're not aware of regarding our superpowers. Now, the conscious mind also possesses higher faculties. And here they are: perception, will, imagination, memory, intuition, and reason. We've got all these higher faculties, and what we want to do is learn how to use them. I call them superpowers. When we start to learn to use these powers, everything in our life changes. At a very early age, we start to go to school, and what happens is we don't learn what we should. Here's what Einstein said. He said, the intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. Now, here's your higher faculties: perception, memory, imagination, reason, intuition, and will. As you develop these, you take control over your life. It's a beautiful thing. So here's a child going to school where they were taught valuable knowledge, but nothing about paradigms. Therefore, we got people that know how to do things, but then they don't do them. Why? In other words, they have superior knowledge, but inferior results, which causes confusion and frustration. Here's the model of the child. The conscious mind is chock full of information, but the results don't match the information. We all have friends who are absolutely brilliant, but the results would indicate that they don't know very much. This causes a lot of confusion and frustration in a person's life, but also in the person who's not getting results. They look over at Harry and Betty and they're doing great and they're not even very bright. They didn't even go to school and they're earning millions. What happened? How come? It's the paradigm that controls the results, not the knowledge that you've got. If you're going to change your results, you have to change the paradigm. There's people that can tell you exactly how to start a business and get it going. They know everything there is to know about what you're doing wrong, but they're doing nothing. How to get like that? They're following exactly what they learned in school. That's how. If you're going to change your results, you're going to have to change your paradigm. And how do you change the paradigm? It's repetition of information. So let's look again. Here's your mind, your body, your conscious and subconscious, and then we have our sensory factors: see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. We know that. They stick out like little antennae and tell us what's going on around us. We also have these higher mental faculties of perception, will, memory, imagination, intuition, and reason. And we want to learn how to utilize those. And most people, they don't know how they work. And yet it is with these mental faculties that you control your emotional state, which controls the frequency you're operating at and therefore determines the results you're getting. It's a shame, really, that most people don't know anything about this because it's so important. When you're only using your sensory factors, you can only go by what you see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. You take a look at the report card, which really just tells you where you were for a few minutes 3 or 4 weeks ago. We look at our paychecks and don't even know we could be having our annual income turn into our monthly income. The doctor gives you a bill of good health and you keel over on your way home just as easy as the one with a terrible diagnosis does. Each of these things has absolutely nothing to do with your potential. Nothing. This is really a black and white deal. It doesn't matter how hard you work or how many hours you put in. If the paradigm does not change, the results will ultimately remain much the same from one agonizing year to the next. You'll see it happen in your company, in your family, in your social circles. Nothing changes very much. When paradigms stay in control, nothing changes. So if you're having difficulty making it happen, the paradigm is where the problem is. It's the conditioning in the subconscious mind. The more we learn about that, the more we take control over our life. And this isn't new information, and it's certainly not mine. Andrew Carnegie in 1908 was the richest man in the world. He thought it was an absolute crime that people like himself would take all the knowledge they learned with them to their grave. So he hired this guy named Napoleon Hill to interview 500 of the wealthiest men of the time and find out how they got to be that way and organize that information so everybody could benefit from it. Napoleon Hill put it all in a book called Think and Grow Rich. In this book, Hill wrote a whole chapter on decision. It's the longest chapter in the book. What happens when you make a big decision? The moment you say yes, or soon after, everything in you is going to want to quit. That's just what happens. If the decision is big enough, after you make it, everything in you is going to want to quit. Andrew Carnegie gave Napoleon Hill a homework assignment. He said, write this down. Andrew Carnegie, I'm not only going to equal your achievements in life, but I'm going to challenge you at the post and pass you at the grandstand. Napoleon threw his pencil on the floor and said, now you know darn well that isn't going to happen. Andrew said, that's right, Napoleon, that isn't going to happen unless and until you plant that in your subconscious mind. Andrew said, I want you to make a commitment that every morning and every night you will look in the mirror repeating that, talking to yourself, and I want you to do that for 30 days. Now, the first day he went in the bathroom and he looked in the mirror and he kind of whispered, Andrew Carnegie, I'm not only going to equal your achievements in life, but I'm going to challenge you at the post and pass you at the grandstand. And he did that every morning and every night. And he said he felt like an idiot. By the middle of the month, he thought maybe it might happen. And by the end of the month, he knew it was going to happen. Carnegie made about 50 millionaires. Napoleon Hill, with his book, made millions of millionaires. Now, here's the first page of chapter 8, Decision, from Think and Grow Rich. Analysis of several hundred people who had accumulated fortunes well beyond the $1 million mark disclosed the fact that every one of them had the habit of reaching decisions promptly and of changing these decisions slowly, if and when they were changed. People who fail to accumulate money without exception have the habit of reaching decisions, if at all, very slowly, and of changing these decisions quickly and often. I'm going to show you something about decision. And I would recommend you really think about this. Let these lines represent levels of vibration, also known as frequency. We think on frequencies. Those puffy little clouds are thoughts, and they represent our current results. Everybody's getting results. They're all different, but they're all results. Then we sit and we dream and we say, that's where I want to go. And I'm going to go there as soon as I get the money. And I'm going to go there as soon as I get the money. I'm going to buy that car as soon as I have a few more clients. We're always going to change the result. We're going to get the dream when the result changes. But what they don't understand is the results are based on their thinking. Pretty soon, the decision fades and dreams fade too. You see that happen with people all the time. The problem is your mind and thoughts are down here on this frequency, and your goal is way up here on this frequency. Your mind and thoughts must operate on the same frequency as your goal. That would be like me trying to call you, and instead I call my brother's number. I'm not going to get you, not when I'm dialing my brother's number. Well, if you're down here on the lower frequency and you want something up here in the higher frequency, you ain't going to get it. It's like trying to get FM music on an AM band. People don't understand this. They'll say, you got to know how. You got to know where the money is going to come from. You don't. You only have to know that you're going. And you got to be saying, I'm going there regardless of any circumstances. And once you're there in thought, you begin to think and act like the person you want to become. As long as you are down here on this frequency, you're never going to get what's up there. You got to get on this higher frequency. You have to think and act like the person you want to become. Every book tells you that. Every great leader tells you that. You got to think and act like the person you want to become. That's why those of you who have known me for years are saying, who is this guy? Even I'm saying, who is this guy? I'm acting differently because my goal is on a different frequency and I must match that frequency in order to step into it. It's really amazing. When our perception changes, the things we look at change. You've got to think and act like the person you want to become. You can live where you want to live, earn what you want to earn. The only prerequisite for making a decision is that you want to. That's it. You got to know where you're going and you got to know you're going to get there. That's the reason successful people make decisions so fast and then stick to them. I can tell you in 5 words what you need to do to make a decision: the will to do it. When John Kennedy asked Wernher von Braun what he needed to get to the moon and back, and he said the will to do it. The will is one of those higher mental faculties that allows you to hold one image on the screen of your mind. If you do that, everything else will follow. What happens is you get on that frequency, and then everything that's required is attracted to you to manifest that picture. Most people don't think like that. They got to know how, but you don't need to know how. You just have to make a decision. And the decision must be a committed decision. You can take the information from this presentation and apply it to your own life, and you will get amazing results. But you'll have to develop discipline, the ability to give yourself a command and then follow it. What you're really doing is you're controlling the flow of thought energy that's coming to and through you. Let it flow freely to and through you. You're a mass of energy and you function on frequencies. Nobody knows what you're capable of doing. No one alive knows what you are capable of doing. Take an honest look at where you are in your life right now. When you look back, you can see how you got there. You might like it, you might hate it, but it is what it is, and you are wherever you are. It's all good, it doesn't matter. But when you look back, you can see all the different levels of frequency you've been through, your different levels of awareness that had you making decisions. If you spend some time on studying that, studying you, you'll see how you got there. Let's see, I lived here, did that, met these people, started working here. You'll see how you got to where you are today. Now, a frequency is a level of vibration, and there are an infinite number of vibrations. And every frequency is connected to the one above and the one below. That means that every one of us are connected. Everything in the universe is connected. Let's say this X represents where you are in your life. Take an honest look at where you are in your life. You can see how you got here. If you don't like it, that's okay. If you do like it, that's okay. It doesn't matter. It is what it is, and this is where you are. And if you look back, you can see all the frequencies you've gone through to get to where you are now, all the different awarenesses, all the different decisions. You can look back and see how you got where you are. I was working here, I met some people there, I married one of them, moved to Texas, and so on and so forth. This is where I am, and that's where I want to go. And you have no idea how to get there. And you let the dream fade. Realize you can go there. You just don't know how. To move to a much higher frequency of thought, you must first consent and then adapt to the ideas and feeling the new frequency represents. You know what frequency I'm living on? I am a master problem solver. I make over $250,000 every month, which I spend on causes that are important to me and my partners. I don't say that to be boastful. I say that because it's possible for you to be, do, or have anything you want. You get to say. I always attract people who want to get what they want in life, and then I show them how to do it. I always have a full schedule of sales calls to make because I designed it that way. It's crazy. That's why I'm making this video. I want people to book calls with me. It's fun. The call lasts about 20 minutes. We talk about what you really want that you're not getting, and you can decide for yourself whether my program is a good fit for you or not. There's no doubt in my mind that this works because I'm living proof of it. People will spend an hour per day studying the online materials and meet with me once every week on Zoom for about a half hour. Suddenly, their whole life changes. That's how it works. So book a call, the link's in the description. And remember this, at the suggestion of a move, your paradigm will instantly put up a huge battle and it will continually fight you. All that conditioning inside will put up a huge battle and you must take conscious control over the paradigm, remove it and replace it. Nobody can do this for you. I wish I could, but I can't. Let's say you're here and you want to go there. Now there is a place. It's actually a different frequency. And it becomes a place the second you go there in your mind. All the great leaders agree on this. If you can hold it in your head, you can hold it in your hand. If you can see what you want to do in your business, for example, you can go there because it's now a place waiting for you to show up. That's how this Facebook group came to be. It was a place in my mind where I have thousands of members and we're all out changing the world one mind at a time. Here's a picture of Bob's Think and Grow Rich book. He's highlighted the following. There is a difference between wishing for a thing and being ready to receive it. No one is ready for a thing until they believe they can acquire it. The state of mind must be belief, not mere hope or wish. Open-mindedness is essential for belief. Closed minds will not inspire faith, courage, and belief. You're not ready for something until you can believe you can do it. You cannot perform beyond your belief. Hoping and wishing won't cut it. You got to believe. But how do you believe? Well, by studying and gaining understanding about how the laws work. The more you get to know about you, the more you begin to believe. So I would say, study this information that I'm presenting to you. Remember, there is a place, and all the great teachers agree that in order to get there, you've got to believe. And if you keep studying, you're going to find that it isn't just a thought, it's a place you went to, you were there. There is a place. Remember, no more effort is required to aim high in life, to demand abundance and prosperity than is required to accept misery and poverty. The moment your belief matches with any state, you fuse with it, and this union results in the activation and projection of its plots, plans, conditions, and circumstances. When you believe, everything changes, the perception shifts. You're seeing different people. You're mixing with different people. Some people won't see what you see, and they're not trying to hurt you. In fact, they're probably trying to help you when they say, don't be a dreamer. They just can't see what you see because you are operating on a different frequency. It's all energy, and we operate on frequencies. This new state of conscious awareness becomes your home from which you view the world. It is your workshop. And if you pay close attention, you will see outer reality shaping itself upon the model of your imagination. Steve Jobs said, "You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in the future." And here's the crazy part. When you get there, you'll say, "Damn, I could have gone there." That's the part you want to remember. Don't be afraid of shooting too high. Nothing is big or small except our thinking makes it so. Everything just is. You can't go back and change anything in the past, and nobody knows what the future holds. So what's to do is the best you can. That's all that really matters. And the best you can is way better than where you're at right now. You have no idea. So let's look again. Your spiritual DNA is perfect. It requires no modification or improvement. You're a spiritual being living in a physical body. And you've been gifted with an intellect. That will dictate your emotional state, and that's going to control where you're going. If you're having a problem there, it's your intellect, the thoughts you are thinking that are messing things up. That's what we want to change, and we're quite capable of changing it. All we have to do is gain an understanding. The highest side of our personality is the spiritual side. That's the side nobody can see. The lower side is the physical, and then we have the intellect. With the intellect, we can tap into the non-physical, which is omnipresent. It's everywhere. And from there, you can pull thoughts together and build ideas. It's the ideas that you build and hold in your mind that are going to ultimately manifest into results and change your world. You can think anything you want. It's by activating the higher side of our own personality, and that's the side that unfortunately we haven't been taught much about. Your goal is very important. It's where you connect the dots. And goal creation, it's an art because you are manipulating energy. You're causing energy to move from where it is to where it's going, and it never would have gone there if you hadn't been involved. There's a 3-step approach to this: A, B, and C. A is something you already know how to do, your present results. You might not like the present results, but you can live with it. B is where you've figured it all out. It's what you think you can do. C is what you want to do, your fantasy. But we're discouraged from that type of goal because fantasy is for kids. We're encouraged not to go there. So what we do is we bounce back and forth between what we know to do, what we know how to do, and what we think we can do. It's boring and it makes people feel stuck. Most people don't know about their higher mental faculties. That's why I'm showing you about this. It's funny, it's also obvious, and yet up until a couple of years ago, I didn't know how it all fit. Now that I do know how it all fits, I want to tell everybody about it. So fantasy is where you want to start. Build a fantasy in your mind of the level of where you want to be, and you put it in a theory in your subconscious, in your consciousness. Now, before you can turn that theory into a goal, you have to ask 2 questions. Am I able and am I willing? When the answer to those 2 questions is yes, that theory turns into a goal. As I get emotionally involved with that goal, it begins to move into physical form. The goal then turns into a fact, and then you can build a new fantasy and do it again. Now, the only thing necessary is the will. It's a higher mental faculty which you can develop for yourself. Setting the goal is where the fun part starts. But there's a problem here. When you go to do something different in your life, it's scary because you've never been there. This is what we call the terror barrier. There's a 4-step approach to this. You see, the first step is bondage. The second, reason. The third's the terror barrier. And the 4th is freedom. So let's look at how we got there. Every one of us experiences this at one time or other. Here we are in bondage. The X represents our conditioning. It's our paradigm in the subconscious mind that produces X-type results. We can think anything we want, but we're having X-type thoughts because they are in harmony with our conditioning. The conditioning controls how you feel. You're not going to think thoughts that scare you. You're going to think thoughts that you're in harmony with. When someone comes along and I start talking with them about all the great things that can happen when they start working with this information, it's just a conversation and everything's cool. Nothing happens because it's just a thought in their conscious mind. It's what I call a why idea. But pretty soon, that person starts thinking, I want to quit this job. I want to move to a new house, and starts getting emotionally involved in the idea. That's when all hell starts breaking loose. And when you start impressing that why idea with your X conditioning, everything goes crazy and you run into what's called a terror barrier. You bounce off of that. Worry, doubt, and fear kick in, and you go right back to bondage. This happens to people time and time again. They never learn how to go through the terror barrier. Now, Joseph Campbell, he said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. So if you've got a goal, you just want to go crashing right through that terror barrier. Don't worry about it. And as you go through it, you'll still experience the fear, because the fear is the X and Y energy mixing. But through the repetition of impressing that why idea on your subconscious mind and becoming emotionally involved with it, the X energy fades away and you find yourself living in a brand new world. Follow along and I'll show you how this happens. You have a choice. There's a power flowing into your consciousness. You can stay in ignorance or you can develop knowledge. When that power flows into your consciousness, you can think anything you want. Generally, people will set for themselves a big goal. They don't know how to reach it. They don't know where the money is going to come from. They don't know how they're going to find customers. Worry and doubt kick in. Now, this is on a conscious level. And when you worry and doubt, it shows up as fear. The fear has to be expressed through the body because it was impressed on the subconscious, and it expresses itself as anxiety. The anxiety isn't expressed, it's suppressed. We keep it bottled up inside, which leads to depression. The depression causes disease and eventually disintegration. Now, this is the way most people are living, and it's sad. Faith based on understanding is the key to freedom. Quit letting conditions and circumstances control you. The only way to gain understanding is to study. You can start with this presentation. Take some of the things you're hearing here and apply them to your life. Now, when you begin to have some understanding on this subject, that leads to faith, and the faith is expressed as well-being. You are at ease, which leads to creation. So what are you going to create? If you knew you could create anything, what would it be? There's an important law that I think I'll close with because it's so important. My company is based on this law. In fact, all companies are based on this law. It's called the law of compensation, and it clearly states the amount of money you earn will always be an exact ratio to the need for what you do, your ability to do it, and the difficulty there will be in replacing you. What I'm doing is I'm showing people how to take control of their life. Forget about the product. That's really what I'm doing. Is there a need for that in today's world? You bet there is. Everywhere I go in the world, there's going to be people who want what I have. So I don't worry about that. How good am I at it? If you develop your ability at whatever it is, you'll be very difficult to replace. That's when your stock goes up. So get really good at what you do. I tried to sell vitamins and MLM opportunities some years back, and people would run away from me when they saw me coming because they knew I was going to ask them to get involved. Now, I put this information out there on YouTube and in my private Facebook group, and I invite people to schedule a call with me if they want to have me show them step by step how to figure out what they want and how to go get it. It's not as easy as it seems trying to decide what you want. That's why I also have a Zoom call on Thursdays where I focus on discovering what people want. I put the links in the description. I don't figure it out for you. I guide you using these laws of the universe, which are simple, effective, and at first glance, completely illogical. But you know what? They work. If you continue to develop your ability to do whatever it is you want to do, your whole world's going to change. So that's what you want to focus on, your ability to do it. Become a master at whatever you do. There's still more I'd like to share with you, but it's time for us to wrap up this presentation. It has been an honor and a privilege to provide this information to you in this presentation. My main interest is that those who are listening to decide what you want and then make a committed decision to go get it and then take action. You are quite capable of going anywhere and doing anything. Bob taught it to me, and now I'm sharing it with you.